Okay, this is Sports for Real with Coach Hall. Just got a few minutes to come on, and by now I'm sure you heard the news that NBA great, NCAA legend Bill Walton, he passed yesterday of cancer, and everybody's saying a few words about him. And of course, when somebody passes, it's always positive. But he had his haters like anybody else. But I can't talk on that. I just want to say a few words about what I did know about Walton. I said before that back in 1980, that was the first time that I realized there was an NCAA tournament, and I thought it was great theater. That year you had Louisville, Iowa, who's the other, Purdue, and UCLA made the Final Four. Didn't think much of that because I like the way Darryl Griffith played. I used to call him Dr. Duncanstein. But as I got involved into watching this, of course, like anything else, I like to go back and try to find the history on what it is that I'm interested in. So it brought me immediately back to 1979. At that time, I used to hear him talking about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Now, this is 1980. I'm just a 9-year-old kid. I don't know anything about that. I didn't know why they were so popular, but I did know that they were both rookies in the NBA. But as you go back to 79, they had that epic NCAA championship game where Michigan State was able to beat Bird and Indiana State in that championship game. But right about that time, ESPN, they became popular. They had cable, so I used to catch a lot of stuff on ESPN. And they used to have these little 30-minute shows where they would recap Final Fours of yore. That's when I found out about UCLA and John Wooden. Back in the 60s up into the 70s, they pretty much dominated college basketball, much in the way that you saw Connecticut women do 6 or 7 years ago. Tennessee before that, now South Carolina is starting to build their own dynasty. Unlike the women, the men teams don't tend to dominate like that, but it started that way with UCLA. They won their last championship in 75. And they had won like 10 championships in 12 years. And Bill Walton just happened to be part of 2 teams that went undefeated. They had this long winning streak, and he was a part of that. So lo and behold, he goes to the NBA, and they won the championship in 77. It fell down 2-0 to Philadelphia, and they came back and win 2 straight. UCLA, they went on to also make the Final Four one other time back in that same 1980 Final Four I was telling you about. They actually lost the championship game to Louisville, but the best team that year was really DePaul. But DePaul, they had a choking problem at that time, and going back to 79, they had lost to Indiana State in the 79 Final Four. So all these connections kind of go together. But Bill Walton, only thing I can really say about him, he was a throwback kind of player. He played in the era where players wanted to play. They hit the floor, and they tried to find a way to get back on the floor when they couldn't physically perform. Case in point, nothing says more about Walton than the 78 season. I told you that Portland won the championship in 77, but in 78, he got hurt, and he was supposed to be out for the whole season. They had won 50 of their first 60 games, and they were primed to repeat as champions. So the fact that he got hurt crippled that opportunity. But when they got to the playoffs, he was still broke up. He was broken. He had foot problems all throughout his career, and he still had broken bones when he tried to come back and play in the playoffs. Well, it didn't last very long before he ended up breaking another bone. And after that, he never played for Portland again. But if Walton don't get hurt, Portland probably would have repeated as champion in 1978. He came back again with Boston in 86 to win his other championship. But it kind of brings up the point of what Mark Jackson said last week. He's talking about how these players today, they don't want to play, and they want to take care of their bodies, and they got to get the massage, and they have to sit out X amount of games and, save themselves. But they seem to be getting injured more now than they did back then. Now, you take a guy like Walton, yeah, he had a lot of injuries, but the fact that he was a big guy, they tend to have those kind of injuries, jumping up and down like that, all that extra weight hitting on those bones. They just couldn't take it. And you've seen a lot of that with some of the players today. Even going back to Greg Oden, he didn't have any knee colleges. Those big guys, it just seemed to break up a lot easier than the smaller guys. But that's no excuse for some of the younger players, as guards and small forwards, that they can get out there and play the game on a regular basis. And what Jackson was saying is because these guys don't play like they used to play, they tend to break up a lot easier. And I tend to agree. These guys are soft. You can't tell me there's going to be very many players today that if they get hurt, they're going to shoot themselves up or find some way to get back in the game. What is the incentive? You're making astronomical sums of money, so there's really no incentive for them to get back out there and play. If we lose, so what? We come back next year and try to win it. That's a horrible attitude for the players on the team right now because we all want to win the championship right now. We don't want to wait till tomorrow because who knows what's going to happen. Some other team going to make some transactions, and the next thing you know, you got a big three over here you got to deal with that wasn't there before. So now your window of opportunity is closing. So the NBA, all that is old is not bad. And just another example of that, you saw I saw the fourth quarter of the Mavericks and the Timberwolves the other day. The Timberwolves were in control of the game, most of the game, but down the stretch, they couldn't finish. They tried to shoot three-pointers to seal the game. If you had a big fella like Bill Walton, you can pound the ball down low, you go get three-pointers the old-fashioned way, wear the other team down, get out of there with a victory. But all you know is to shoot three-pointers. You're not going to beat teams like that down the stretch. And sure enough, it comes down to chance. Mavericks hit their shots. Minnesota did not. And as a result, they're out of there. They're down 3-0. So the only thing left for that series is will it get closed out tonight to make it a double sweep in the conference finals. As you saw yesterday, the Celtics took care of the Pacers, so now they're going to sit down and rest and wait to see how long it's going to take for Minnesota to succumb to the situation that they put themselves in. But if you had a guy like Walton, you pound the ball down to the big fella, work inside out, and then when you take away the big fella, you kick it out, then you hit your three-point shots. That's what Denver was able to do last year with Jokic, and that's why they were the champions last year. They're not going to be champions this year because they didn't execute that same game plan like they did last year. But big fellas like Walton will never go out of style. If they can get up and down the floor, it makes solid sense to pound the ball down to the big fella and play inside out. And then if a team like Minnesota with their young fella, Anthony Edwards, you had a big fella like that, they might just be unstoppable. But they cut their own throat by trying to shoot threes all the time, and it backfired against them. But that's just it. I don't have a whole lot to say about Bill Walton. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about him except for Larry Johnson. He took offense one time when the reporter asked him about a criticism that Walton said about him. He said, "Damn Bill Walton." That's the only time I ever heard anybody say anything against Bill Walton. But he was a great ambassador for the game. Got 2 championships in college for that dynasty they had at UCLA. Championships with Boston and Portland in the NBA. Probably would have went back to back if he had not got hurt in '78 and wasn't for Magic and his heroics in '87. They probably would have won that one too. So anyway, that's all I got to say about it. This has been Sports for Real. Like always, got to go to work. You guys have a great day.